I am 85 years old. Over the last 6 decades, I have shared my home, my food, and my heart with more than 15 cats. And today, I see young people making the exact same tragic, heartbreaking mistakes with their cats that I made in my youth. I still remember the sound of that tiny bowl touching the floor, the way my first cat ran toward it with trust in her eyes, and the way I smiled, thinking I was doing something loving. I did not know then that love, when mixed with ignorance, can become a kind of poison. I wish someone had stopped me. I wish someone had told me the truth before it was too late. Her name was Layla, a small, soft gray kitten with a pink nose and a tail that trembled every time she saw me walk into the room. I was only 20 years old, full of confidence, full of foolish certainty. Back then, everyone believed the same thing, that cats and milk belonged together like bread and butter. You saw it in cartoons, in storybooks, in old movies. A saucer of milk was the symbol of kindness. And so every morning and every night I poured milk into a shallow dish and set it down proudly, believing I was being a good caretaker. I can still see her lowering her head, lapping eagerly, her tiny tongue moving so quickly as if she feared the bowl might disappear. For the first few days, everything seemed fine. She purred, she played, she curled up on my chest at night, her heartbeat steady against mine. I thought I had everything under control. But then little changes began to appear, small, quiet warnings that I did not understand. She started visiting the litter box more often. Her stool became loose. Sometimes she cried softly in the corner, a weak, confused sound that made my stomach tighten, but I told myself it was nothing. I told myself she would grow out of it. I told myself milk was natural. After all, hadn't cats been drinking milk for centuries? That was the lie I believed, and it is the same lie I see so many young people believing today. One evening, about 2 weeks after I brought her home, I noticed she did not run to greet me at the door. That had never happened before. Usually she would be there, tail straight up, eyes shining, ready to rub against my legs. But that night, the house felt strangely quiet. I found her under the couch, curled into a tight ball, her breathing shallow. Her fur looked dull, and her body felt warm in a way that frightened me. I remember kneeling on the floor, whispering her name, promising her everything would be okay, even though I had no idea what was wrong. I rushed her to the veterinarian, my hand shaking on the steering wheel. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and fear. When the doctor finally came out, his face was serious, not angry, not accusing, just heavy with the kind of sadness that comes from seeing the same mistake too many times. He asked me one simple question: "What have you been feeding her?" I answered proudly, almost defensively, "Milk. Fresh milk twice a day. She loves it." The silence that followed felt like a storm gathering over my head. He sat me down and explained something that changed my life forever. He told me that most cats, especially after they are weaned from their mothers, lose the ability to properly digest lactose, the sugar found in milk. Their bodies simply do not have enough of the enzyme needed to break it down. Instead of nourishing them, the milk sits in their stomach, fermenting, causing gas, cramps, diarrhea, and dehydration. In small amounts, it might only cause discomfort. But given regularly, especially to a young kitten, it can weaken them, drain their energy, and in severe cases, it can take their life. I remember feeling the blood drain from my face. My mind kept repeating one horrible sentence: I did this. I did this with my own hands. The thing I believed was kindness had slowly been hurting her every single day. I wanted to argue. I wanted to deny it. But deep inside, I already knew the truth. All those little warning signs, the frequent trips to the litter box, the crying, the loss of appetite, they were not random. They were her way of telling me she was suffering, and I had been too ignorant to listen. We kept her at the clinic that night. I went home alone, carrying the empty blanket she had been wrapped in. The house felt colder than it ever had before. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall, replaying every moment in my mind. Every bowl of milk, every satisfied smile, every time I ignored the signs. I did not sleep. I simply waited for morning, praying to a God I barely spoke to in those days. She survived by some miracle. The veterinarian rehydrated her, changed her diet, and warned me with a firmness I will never forget: Never give a cat regular cow's milk again. That day, I learned the difference between tradition and truth. Tradition says cats love milk. Truth says milk can make them sick. Tradition is loud and comforting. Truth is quiet and sometimes painful. Over the next 60 years, I carried that lesson with me like a scar on my heart. I went on to care for many more cats: strong cats, gentle cats, stubborn cats, and shy ones that hid behind furniture for weeks before trusting me. I watched them grow old. I held them in my arms as they took their final breaths, and through all those years I never again put a bowl of milk on the floor, not once. Instead, I gave them clean, fresh water every day and proper cat food designed for their delicate bodies. I learned to read the subtle language of their behavior, the way a drooping tail can signal pain, the way a change in appetite can signal illness. And yet, even now, when I visit younger families, I still see that familiar scene: a smiling owner, a playful kitten, and a small dish of milk placed lovingly on the kitchen floor. My heart sinks every time. I want to grab their hand and stop them, not with anger, but with the urgency of someone who has lived long enough to know how quickly joy can turn into regret. Let me tell you something very clearly from the deepest place in my old bones. Cats do not need milk after they are weaned. Their bodies are designed to drink water. Milk is not a treat, it is a risk. Some cats may tolerate tiny amounts without obvious symptoms, but many will suffer silently: bloating, stomach pain, diarrhea, dehydration. And kittens, with their small, fragile bodies, are especially vulnerable. What looks like a harmless habit can slowly chip away at their health. I sometimes sit by the window in the late afternoon watching the sunlight stretch across the floor, and I think about Layla. I think about how close I came to losing her because of a simple misunderstanding. I think about how many animals around the world are still suffering from that same myth, and I wonder how different my life might have been if someone had pulled me aside at the age of 20 and whispered the truth into my ear. That is why I am speaking to you now, with whatever time and strength I have left. I am not trying to scare you for the sake of drama. I am trying to protect the small, trusting creature that sleeps beside you, the one who depends on you for everything. Cats cannot read labels. They cannot search the internet. They cannot tell you in human words that their stomach hurts. They rely entirely on your knowledge, your patience, and your willingness to learn. So please, tonight, when you walk into your kitchen and your cat looks up at you with those bright, hopeful eyes, reach for the water bowl instead of the milk carton. Give them what their body truly needs, not what tradition tells you they want. Watch their health, listen to their behavior, and never assume that old habits are safe simply because they are familiar. I am 85 years old now. My hands are slower, my steps are shorter, and my memories sometimes arrive before my thoughts. But one thing remains as sharp as ever: the image of that tiny kitten trusting me completely, and the heavy guilt I carried for years because of my mistake. You still have time to do better than I did. You still have the chance to protect your companion from unnecessary suffering. Go find your cat right now. Call their name softly. Feel the warmth of their fur beneath your fingers. Hold them close, even if they pretend to be annoyed. And remember that love is not just about affection. It is about understanding. If my old memories helped you today, stay with me, learn with me, and share this lesson with others. Because the smallest piece of knowledge can save a life, and the smallest act of care can become a lifetime of love.